everyone, it's Heidi from HB Paper Crafts. Just taking a second to catch up with the lag on Facebook as always. Make sure we're on and going. So welcome to my regular Tuesday live. Today is Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. It's hard to believe we're already halfway through April. There we go. Hi, Pam. I, for one, am ready for some sunshine and warm weather. It'll make all this craziness a lot easier to handle, I think. Hi, Shelly. All right, so people are popping on, so I'm in the right spot. So yeah, waiting for some sunshine and warm weather. It'll make everything a little bit easier. I work at a local hospital, so in northern New Hampshire. And on particularly stressful days, I really like sitting on my back porch after work with maybe a glass of wine or whatever, just soaking up some sunshine and calmness. And I could really use my back porch right about now. A close second is spending time creating, so that I'm still able to do. So I'm very grateful for that. Certainly no one can say I'm not well stocked for that type of therapy, for sure, as are all of us probably. All right, so I only have a couple things to share with you before we get creating. As I posted today, we're going to create this evening with the Breathtaking Bouquet cling mount background stamp set. So it's one of my favorite new backgrounds, and I'm going to just show you some fun different ways that we're going to use it tonight. So first, next week, demonstrators will get an advance copy of the all-new annual catalog. So if you're familiar with Stampin' Up, you know that we get a brand new catalog once a year in June. This big, amazing catalog comes out, and we get a advance copy next week. So that's kind of very exciting. It's an exciting time of the year for us. But with that, there are, of course, some things that will be retiring in the catalog. And I've mentioned before, we have what is called in colors. So every year we get a new set of in colors. They're good for 2 years. The in colors going out of the catalog this year are the 2018 to 2020 in colors, which are the Lovely Lipstick, the Grapefruit Grove, Pineapple Punch, Call Me Clover, and Blueberry Bushel. So all those are going away this year. So as we approach the new catalog time, we'll see the cardstock, the ink, the re-inkers, we'll see all those start to sell out. So if you have those colors and you want to stock up on those, I just wanted to remind you that all the DSP, all the embellishments, everything in those colors you'll see start to go. And again, we'll start seeing retiring items from the annual catalog, and we'll say goodbye to our January to June mini as well. In June, coming up in June. So the next thing that I want to mention is I'm going to host a swap. So during these crazy times where we're separating and spending more time in our homes and not able to gather, Stampin' Up! Has challenged demonstrators to hashtag try something new and hashtag keep stamping. So I accepted this challenge by creating and hosting my first ever card swap. So if you've never done a card swap before, they're kind of really fun. You get to make several of your cards. So you're going to make several of one design of cards. This happens to be, I sent out a bunch of cards recently, just sort of as Happy Mail, and this is what I had created. They were in all different colors. I used different DSP. You know, I used what I had on hand. So that's kind of what you would do with a swap. You'd have one design, create several of the same design, and then you would send them to me. I would trade them out with one of every other of the designer's cards that have joined the swap as well. So the sign up for the swap ends on Friday, so Friday the 17th, and then you'll have till May 1st to create your cards. So you come up with a design, you create several of your cards. Again, you can swap out the paper, swap out the colors, you know, whatever works for you. And you can mail them to me, or I'm offering a porch drop-off or porch pickup. And I'm going to send out the full details on Friday. So there's no theme. So it's just for fun, just an exciting way to, again, hashtag keep stamping and get some great ideas and cards in return. So lastly, the clearance rack has been updated. They've done a refresh on the clearance rack online. So there's lots of new items added, some up to 60% off. So I just wanted to mention that to you as well. All right. So I see quite a few of you on. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Georgia. Hi, Sandy. The again, the stamp set we're going to use tonight is the Breathtaking Bouquet. This is a cling mount background stamp set out of the January to June mini. When I'm using background stamps, I like to use my Stamparatus for a couple different reasons. Number one, you can stamp it, and my number one reason for using it is that you can stamp it multiple times. So sometimes when you stamp on a block, you may not get a clear image in the center, or, you know, there's pieces that don't come out clear. Using the Stamparatus actually allows you to stamp it multiple times until you get the image that you want, and everything is covered. So I like to use it for this reason. So the first card, hi Sue. First card that we're going to make tonight is this thank you card. So this just simple, cute little thank you card using the background stamp, just as literally a background stamp here. And then we're also going to do some fun things with it. I'm going to show you as well. All right, so for the first card, you're going to need a piece of crumb cake. This piece is 5.5 by 8.5. And then I also have a second piece of crumb cake that is the 4.25 by 11. So it's essentially two pieces of cardstock cut in half. One cut this way and one cut the other way. So this is going to be our card base. This one we're going to use as our background. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this in my Stamparatus, and I'm just going to put it right over to the edge here. That's how I had it set up. And the magnets just sort of hold your paper in place. I am going to ink it up this time with our Versamark ink. Versamark is just watermark ink, basically. Just makes it a shade darker. When you're using the Stamparatus, if you set up a stamp pad underneath the window here, it makes it a little bit easier to maneuver. So I'm going to ink up the whole background with my Versamark stamp pad, making sure I get it all covered here. And then it doesn't really look like a whole much yet, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink it again. Make sure I get it all pushed down here, and there we go. So there we have our background, and because it's a watermark ink, it's very faint in the background, so it may be a little bit hard to see. Hopefully you can see it when I hold it up like that. Okay, so we're going to set this guy aside, and I'm actually going to move right on to stamping it again. So now this time I'm going to take a piece of Whisper White, and the Whisper White is 5.5 by 8.5. And we're going to stamp it this time in Memento black ink. So I'm just going to take a second and use my chamois and just sort of wipe off some of the Versamark ink here. my chamois is a little too wet. So I'm just going to take a towel and just pull up some of that water I just put down on it. All right. I was literally just looking for my ink and couldn't remember what I did with it. Hello, Heidi. Okay, so I'm going to stamp the background again. This time we're going to stamp it in the Memento Black. And I'm going to use the Memento because I'm going to use my Stampin' blends to color a couple of the flowers. And you see what I mean here by I didn't get some of this area here. So using the Stamparatus actually allows you to go back in and re-ink a couple of the flowers. Although for our purposes, the flowers that I want are fully inked. Alright, so there are our flowers. I'm going to take this and set it aside. And I took some of our blends, so I'll go ahead and show you the second card that we're going to make. So we're going to make it all out of this one sheet of the floral background that we made. So I took my So Saffron markers and I just colored a couple of the smaller flowers in the So Saffron, and then I went ahead and I colored the roses, a couple of these bigger roses, and I colored them in, this is the Poppy Parade. And to do the background, I just sort of went over the whole flower with the light, and then you're going to go back in and you're going to hit some areas with the dark and do the shading. I didn't worry about staying in the lines because we actually, I just went ahead and I fussy cut these out. And then you're going to take and you're going to do your shading in a couple of the little areas. And I like to do the whole image in the light and then do some shading and then blend it in. That's what works best for me. Everybody sort of has their own way of using our Stampin' blends, but that's my preferred method. Just hitting some of this with some little shadows. And then I would go back in with my light and just blend it all together. Like so. Now to give myself more dimension on my yellow flowers, I did the same thing. I used the dark of the So Saffron, but the flowers still remained pretty light. So I actually went in with my Mango Melody, and this is the dark Mango Melody, and I actually gave it even more. I'm going to use the the bullet tip here, and I gave it even more dimension just by adding a little bit darker of the Mango Melody, like so. Alright, so rather than have you just watch me color all those, I actually have them all colored. So for this card, I colored and cut out the yellow pieces, and then for the next card, we're going to use those two roses, and that's what forms on here. Alright, so back to card number 1. So this is our background. I'm going to go ahead now and trim this down. And you could start out with the paper the exact size that you want. However, I find it hard to keep it in place when I do that, so I like to just use this method here. So this is going to be cut down to 4 by 5 1/4. And then this is our background piece. So this is the piece that was 4 1/4 by 11, and it's just going to serve as our base, our card base. Our background piece is going to get mounted right onto it, so sort of a tone-on-tone effect with the card. It's going to get mounted right onto the card base. Alright, so then I cut out some pieces. These labels, of course, I don't think I can get through a live without using my favorite new label set, the Stitched So Sweetly set. That's that scallop rectangle that has the stitching on the inside, and then the stitching on these all these different labels as well. I think I pull this set out quite often. So I have a piece of our vellum cardstock, and then I cut another one of the labels out of the Whisper White. I'm also going to use our vellum cardstock, and I'm going to cut out or punch out 4 from our little sprig punch here. So I just have 4 little pieces of greenery. So to start assembling this, I'm just going to, and you can see I used a scrap, I'm just going to go in each of the corners here and lay down some adhesive. And I did it in the opposite corners, but we're just going to let it happen. So I'm going to put one down there, and then I'm going to offset the other one and put that one here. Oops. And then the others are going to go down on the other corner. And here. So then this whole thing can actually get adhered right to our little vellum piece here. So there's our little background setup for our thank you. And then that's going to get glued right down onto our card. And I'm just going to glue right behind the white because, of course, vellum, you're going to see through if we put it into the areas not covered by the white die cut. Okay, so next I took, these are little thank yous that were actually cut using the Thank You Thinlet die set that's in the catalog, and I actually took 3 of them, and the reason I did is because I wanted a little dimension on them. So this is kind of a cool trick when you have these thinner items that you can't really use dimensionals, but you want to find some dimension on them. I'm just going to hit them with a little bit of our liquid glue. You can do it that way, or we can actually take, this is our little buddy here. What do I want to call it? A little non-stick mat. And you can actually take a pile of glue, like so, and take a little piece of sponge. So these little sponges actually are in our catalog, and I use them to sponge with ink, but you can also use them to sponge with adhesive. So I'm going to just take a little piece of the sponge, and I'm going to sponge over the top of the letters, making sure you don't move it around too much. And then I'm going to take the second thank you And I'm going to lay it right on top. Like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some more down on this guy, the next layer. And it doesn't take much. No, and clearly it gets stuck to your fingers as well. And we're going to put the third one right on top. So that's just giving us sort of a thicker die cut, a thicker thank you, without having to use dimensionals. And it's hard to show on the video, but it really does stand out on the card itself. So there we go. We're going to layer those three together. And then this you can actually, you can wash it with soap and water. You can wait for it to dry, and all this will actually just peel right off as well on that little mat. So you can see on my card here the dimension that the thank you has, which is kind of cool. All right, so back to our thank you. Now I'm just going to hit it in a couple of spots. Again with the liquid glue. And I'm going to put it on my card. So now I'm going to go back to the flowers that I cut out of our background that we colored in here. And I'm going to use some dimensionals. And I'm going to put those on here as well. Like that. And last but not least, I'm going to use a little bit of bling that I have. These are left over from the holiday rhinestone pack here. I'm going to use my little take your pick tool and add some little gems to the card. So there we go. There is one card using that beautiful bouquet background. Or breathtaking bouquet, I guess I should say. That's what it's called. All right, so moving right along, we'll move on to our second card. So the second card I used the same background. So again, I just stamped it that one time with the black ink, and I colored in the two roses out of the top of the stamp set, and then the yellows that I used on this card. So you could do it with any colors. I actually switched it up on this one, and I'm going to do it with some different colors. The designer series paper that I used here measures 2 by 5.5. This is just a whisper white background that measures 5.5 by 8.5, so it's just a half a sheet of the cardstock. And we're going to go ahead and glue the designer series paper down. This, both of these papers actually come right out of the Poppies designer series paper. Let's see, there it is. And we're going to adhere this guy right down along the side. I gave myself a little bit of a white edge because I liked it to stand out just a little bit. So on the second card, I decided I was going to switch up the colors a little bit, and I actually used the blue. So I used the Balmy Blue blends and colored it in with that. But to give myself a little bit more of a background, I actually used some flecks of ink. Hopefully you can see those in the video. So I'm going to do that here as well. So I'm going to set these guys aside. Get out some paper. And I'm just going to use my Memento ink. And all I did is just squeeze it a little bit. And I'm going to use the lid as sort of a palette. I'm going to get my brush a little wet here. And I'm going to pick up some of that black ink. And I'm just going to tap it. So I can get just a little bit more here. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of color in the background there. So I'm going to clean my brush. Whoop. Okay, I'm going to set this aside to let it dry for a minute. I'm going to use the other piece of the Whisper White, so I'm just going to go back to my Memento ink. And I used Happy Birthday. The Happy Birthday that I used on my card here was from the Label Me Bold set. This is one of my new favorite sentiment sets because I love these little strips. They're so easy to just cut out and use, and it has quite a few different ones there. So for this one, I actually went ahead and I stamped it 3 times because I have it saying Happy Birthday. You could use just Happy Birthday, but I wanted to fill it out just a little bit more. Because these are solid stamp sets, you do want to make sure that you get it good and inked so that it gives you a good impression as well. Okay, so then I just took my snips. And I'm going to cut these guys out. Still have some of that thank you glued to my finger here. And then for the other ones, I'm just going to cut right up the side of the bee. And now I have just a happy. And the same on the last one here. Has anyone had a chance to create this week? I did go and I sent out quite a few cards, just sort of sending out some happy mail and having people pass them on to others. All right, so I'm going to glue these onto the bottom of my little roses here. Wow, can't seem to get a hold of it. And then one more. So happy birthday. All right, so we're going to pull back in our little paper here. Make sure it's good and dry. And my roses are going to be glued on with, again, some dimensionals. And then they're just going to go right here at the bottom. And there we go. So there is our second little project using this background stamp. I'm not sure which one. I think I like that red one better. They're both pretty. I like purple too. So there are our projects for this evening using the Breathtaking Bouquet background stamp. I hope that you guys are spending some time creating and enjoying some creative therapy, as I call it, in your craft rooms. I think we all need a little bit of creative therapy right about now. Thank you guys so much for stopping in tonight. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Happy stamping, everybody. Bye-bye.